The good, the bad, and the ugly of all that's in the PTB. Let's talk about it. Kings and queens, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Recently, we had the PTB coming out into Dead by Daylight, and it was something to say the least. Let's go ahead and talk about everything that we basically seen, and let's start off with the good. What's good in this patch? And there's actually quite a lot. First and foremost, we have new map reworks. For the Auto Heaven maps, this is absolutely fantastic. The Gas Heaven map has been changed, Blood Lodge has been changed. Everything feels nice. It feels centralized. It feels like a Dead by Daylight map. You know, I am a little bit sad because the nostalgic feeling of these maps are gone, and I already do miss them, ironically. But you know what? All in all, I think it's a pretty solid change. Not having those really long tiles or really old school type of things, just make it feel like a newer Dead by Daylight. Again, I will miss that nostalgic feeling, but overall, I'm pretty happy with it, and I think these are some pretty solid changes. Moving on forward, we did see the new Blood Web system in play, or the auto leveling system. This is fantastic. You won't be sitting there for hours upon hours just leveling up. You can simply click the button in the middle, bada bing, bada boom, you're good to go. You can also just click on whatever you want. So if you really see something that you like, just click on it, boom, you're there. I assume in the future they're going to add in a 2x, maybe 5x speed for this, so it can just go by faster, especially if more perks are coming out, so it goes even quicker. And all in all, it's pretty solid. I'm happy with it. It looks like a really good change, and I'm looking forward to it. Majority of the killers got changed as well, with the exception of the Hillbilly. I think these are all some pretty good changes. Overall, all the add-ons and changes for these killers are pretty much on par. I agree with most of them. They're all pretty solid, so we got some changes for multiple different killers. They're all alright. I like them. There's nothing wrong with it. The visual Harpy was a huge plus. I think this is probably one of the best features that we've seen in a very long time. It is amazing. I'm happy that they prioritize accessibility, and it works out super well in the game. You know, I'm really happy that if you're not looking at your character as well, you still can see the heartbeat popping up on screen. It's perfect. I really like it. I think this is going to help a lot of people. As I said a couple of times, my best friend Mark is deaf in his left ear, so I know from a first-hand or second-hand, I guess, experience that this is going to be really good for players that actually need it. And even for you guys watching my videos, you can now determine if the killer's around without actually hearing in-game audio. So it's perfect. I like it. This is a solid change all the way around. Let's talk about the bad stuff. What's not necessarily the best in this update? We'll start off with the changes that they did to the Hillbilly. While the changes itself to base Hillbilly is decent, you know, they want you to use the Hillbilly's weapon more as a weapon rather than a tool to traverse the map, which I can understand. The changes to engravings, in my opinion, were just a little bit uncalled for. You took Billy's best add-ons and basically pushed it so far down that no one will ever look at them. And the fact that Hillbilly already doesn't have any good add-ons as is, with the exception of maybe Lopro chains and Mother's Helpers if you're really looking for something, engravings was what everybody ran. And because of that, a killer that has been recently falling down in the ranks and no one's playing them, it's just going to get shoved more down. You know, nobody's going to really play them. Ever since the overheat mechanic came out, people really just went away from Billy. You know, we accepted when they got rid of Insta-Saw and Carburetor Tuner Guides being OP with the Thompson's mix, things like that, primer bulbs, all that good stuff, and we were okay with that. And then they introduced the overheat mechanic, and we all kind of scratched our heads on why they did this, because if you really look at it, it doesn't make sense. And now they're doing even more to some of the best add-ons. Maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, and to maybe casual players, which they're trying to appeal to, this is a better change for them. I don't actually know, but I know one thing for sure: for more experienced players, no one's going to be playing Hillbilly, with the exception of maybe Rapid Main. But it sucks, because Hillbilly definitely benefited greatly from those add-ons, you know? And I think if they decided to change those add-ons, they could have at least made him better in other parts and really change the overheat mechanic or completely remove it. That's just me, but that's part of the things that I think is bad in this change. Moving on forward, the flashlights being changed, I don't like that at all. I personally like the fact that people were able to kind of use the flashlight in an offensive way rather than getting flashlight saves. So if you're going against a Wraith, you can burn the Wraith. And chances are, if you're an experienced player, you can just hide around a corner and uncloak and kind of get a free easy hit on these people because they can't necessarily get you. Same thing with the artist, like in her crows. These are easy hits that you can get on people if you can catch them in the act of doing it. As for the hag traps and removing the hag traps, I'm okay with this one. This one's kind of down the middle. I'm gonna put it in the middle. Not necessarily bad, I just forgot to talk about it. I like that there is more counterplay to the hag now, because most hag players will just place traps underneath your feet, which, I mean, I do as well. It's the smartest way to play her. And if you don't have a flashlight, the only other way of countering this is by crouching. Now that there's an actual whole ordeal that you can get rid of this, it's kind of nice, and you don't necessarily need to rely on the flashlight, so I think that's okay. That's completely fine. But for the flashlight itself and burning some of these killers' nurse, the crows on the artist, you know, Spirit's Husk, I think that was a cool feature that they had that introduced more fun and unique gameplay. And while it might be a little bit irritating to some people that maybe don't know how to go against that or what to do against that, it kind of benefits and makes the game more fun, in my opinion, for those that do know how to do it. Maybe you can get that burn off on the killer, maybe you can avoid it and get a free hit. It's just another layer or a level of different gameplay that I thought was fine, but I guess they didn't necessarily like it and they thought it was an old outdated mechanic. So it is what it is, but I will put that in the bad, at least for me. I don't necessarily think that it's the best thing. More so on the bad side, we have the pain res change. I don't think pain res needed to be gutted the way it did, the same way they did it to most of the perks in the game that are beneficial. I think the things that they did to Call of Bride and Overcharge was fine. They're trying to get rid of the gen kick meta, but this is where it starts to slowly move towards the ugly, and I'll get to that in a second. But getting rid of perks that necessarily benefit you for good gameplay, you know, doesn't feel right. Like perks in the game that kind of were just like Noed, for example. Okay, I'm just using Noed as an example here. To me, those are perks that don't benefit you for good gameplay. Like, you made it to the end game because of mistakes you made, or because maybe the gens just got popped and you didn't have an opportunity. Regardless, you are now relying on something that is just activated because you didn't do good. Pain res, pop, things like that, you're getting the benefit of what you've done. If you manage to get somebody and you hook them, and especially if you make it to a Scourge hook, you get a benefit for that. Now they're kind of getting rid of that because they're limiting it. And I understand why they're doing this, because it's the same reason they did it to Deadheart. They don't know a solid fix to this, and they don't want to absolutely kill the perk. So instead of changing the perk itself, they found a way to limit it. They found a way that they can limit the perk so you're not using it multiple times in a match. And that's the same thing that essentially happened to Deadheart. And I don't think the Deadheart change was needed at all. I think Deadheart and Scourge Hook were definitely used quite a lot, but for both of them, I think they were both quite decently fine. For Deadheart, if they had to make a change, I would have, and I spoke to one of my mods about this, we came up with a nice way where Deadheart can be used only when vaulting a window or pallet, so that way you're already in animation, and then the killer hits you, and if you manage to use it, you then get your speed boost from that. So it's kind of like life, except you won't die if you use it. Not necessarily the best fix. You know, I'm sure you guys might be able to come up with something else, but I think limiting these perks doesn't necessarily help them. It's not a healthy way of fixing it from being too used. I feel like it's just a temporary band-aid fix, and in the future they might change it. And if they are going to go with things like that, and they are going to limit the perk itself, there's no reason not to buff it. For example, pain res shouldn't be 15% if you only use it 4 times in a match. It could easily be 20-25%. because you're only using it up to 4 times in a match. Deadheart, for example, I don't really have anything off the top of my head, but you can buff it up. So if you're only using it maximum 8 per person, which is extremely hard to do, you're probably only going to get it 1 or 2 times. You can definitely buff it up in some way or some aspect. Maybe a longer burst of speed after being hit. I don't know, something crazy, because it's limited. Why not? Now, this kind of takes us into the ugly part. With them changing perks like this, it leads to gameplay that is much more limited. And because the gameplay is much more limited than what it actually is, and now with the other changes that they did with healing and making healing so long, this is where it gets ugly. In case you didn't know, you can no longer use medkits essentially for more than one heal. You have to kind of rely on your teammates to heal you. And if you self-care, you're going to be there for time. You'll be there for a minute and a half. And if the killer, people have done experiments where they've seen the longest time it takes to heal. It takes 6 minutes to heal. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen in your regular game, but in the games that I played, everybody's running Sloppy Butcher, everybody's running Chlorophobia, everyone's running Dying Light, you know, things that make it longer. And that's the meta that we're going to see now. We're going to see this insanely long healing meta. Now, I'm a killer man. Don't get me wrong. When I read these changes on paper, I was over the moon. I was so happy. But playing it and seeing how bad it is on the survivor side makes me know that this is a terrible change because survivors are not going to have fun. And they're sadly just going to not want to play. I played a few games of Survivor and I was miserable going against these things. And what's going to end up happening is that it limits the type of gameplay that you can do. In previous videos, I said that the only way they can really shake up the meta is by adding more options on what you can do, adding more perks on what you can do, making perks, making things synergize well so that the player has multiple different options so they don't have to get stuck into one meta. We've seen the opposite of that. We've seen them taking away rewarding perks on both sides, making it so that healing is longer, forcing people to just run these long-winded healing builds, and then survivors will be like, you know what, screw it. There's no point in healing because we have to rely on other people to heal us, and if we try to run perks just to heal, we're wasting our time. So what we're going to see is survivors running things just to crank out gens as quick as possible, but killers are going to run these perks to make the games go as long as possible. And it's going to become pretty crazy where you're either going to get games that are done in quick time if the killer does nothing, or it'll be dragged out for 20-30 minutes, just regenning, keeping everybody injured, heal, 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 rinse, repeat. That's what's going to happen. These games are going to get long, these games are going to get boring, these games are going to be no fun, and you're going to see the rise in players in Legion play, even Oni. You know, Twins got shadow buffed as well, so you might see some Twins as well. And essentially, they're just leading to some very ugly bad gameplay. And any perk that essentially helped you to heal, like Circle Healing, for example, got completely killed as well. So it's interesting, the route that they're taking. I definitely don't think a lot of these things are going to make it to life. And if they do make it to life, they're going to look at Mangled and Hemorrhage for sure, and adjusting them. Because they've made a lot of adjustments to these perks in the past, and they didn't necessarily, at least I don't think, fully thought what those effects would have on the changes that they're doing now. And they didn't kind of put the two together and be like, ooh, yeah, you know what? If someone's just healing for like 2 minutes, that doesn't feel fun. Like, instead of holding M1 on the gen and you're actually getting progress for the team, you're holding M1 on yourself just to heal. Doesn't feel good. Regardless, that is essentially the ugly of what I see with this chapter, and I think that eventually we will see some changes to everything, and it might be a little bit better, but if these changes fully make it into the game, it is not going to be good, it is not going to be fun, and I don't think people are going to enjoy it. That's my thoughts, that's my opinion. This is the, the good, the bad, and the ugly of this patch. Again, I love a lot of things they've done with this, but when it comes down to the actual core gameplay, which is probably the biggest thing of everything, it's not fun, it's going to be boring, and hopefully they can adjust it and make it feel a lot better. And this is coming, again, from a killer main. I play killer, but I want both sides of the game to be healthy and balanced so we can all have fun. With that being said, that is pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to leave a like down below and subscribe for some more awesome Dead by Daylight content. As always, I'm the King. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.